Hello, and welcome to the Alchemists Inkwell.
This is your spiritual podcast for grounded people.
I'm Emily.
And I'm KristaLyn, and I'm feeling forcibly grounded this week by my own body, which does happen sometimes, you guys. Oh, if you hear my voice get tight, it's because
Chris was in a lot of pain, and we're just going to push through. And if they grunt and groan, we're going to honor their pain and send them all of the love and healing energy that we can.
And laughing hurts too, but I love to laugh. So you guys can enjoy this with me. I promise it's okay if you're laughing and you're watching the recording. Oh my gosh. I have tissues. It's okay.
Okay, I will try to be super not funny this episode.
Don't you dare be funny, Emily. I think that's probably the worst challenge we could ever have. Okay.
Welcome. It's the full moon. Let's just start there. It was rough. If it was rough for you, yeah. It was all around. Just a really, really challenging full moon. A lot of physical stuff, honestly. Well, New York became one giant bowl of moon water. So there's that. Lots of activated rats going on. Super fun. Sorry, I'm sorry, I forgot it was supposed to be funny. Sorry. It's so funny to watch your face. Anyway, so that happened, and then like a lot of physical stuff came up too. First of all, the headlines were wild. I even like made a TikTok about it because in like a period of an hour, they like New York flooded. They found Tupac's murderer. Dianne Feinstein died. I was like,
that guy that was like freaking out on TikTok. Yeah, Dan showed that to me. He's like, "Did you see today?" And I was like, "Did you see today? Like, do you know what this is?" Yeah. And to be fair, it was the moon. And it was a full moon in Aries right before eclipse season. Normally, this would be an eclipse, but the moon was a little bit too late in Aries, or no, too early in Aries to be close enough to the nodes. Yeah, so it was very like it was a glancing of the eclipse potential.
Yeah.
But also, we're not going to have another Mars ruled eclipse until next spring. So these eclipses are actually going to be Venus ruled. And we're still looking at Venus being in, by the time of the eclipse, she will be in Virgo. So she's cruising for like not her favorite place, not necessarily her favorite spot. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And she's
just popping off.
She's had it. Yeah.
That's great. I'm here for her energy. I know we've talked about it on here before, but now like multiple different, like we have a new temple to Aphrodite that just got discovered last week. And then before that it was Hecate and then Medusa. And I'm like, oh shit. Okay. So Venus is just raising the old gods levels of energy coming in. And I love that.
Yeah. And to think about, Venus is currently rising as a morning star. I had the absolute stunning honor in Lake Tahoe with you last week to be able to go on walks before sunrise and to see her in all of her bright and wonderful glory over the mountains. It was amazing. But Venus as a morning star really is considered pretty warrior-esque. So that's something to really be thinking about as we see all these different temples resurrecting themselves. This is Inanna coming back out of the end of the world. So
yeah. Very much so, which I love. And she's doing it in a amazing, fiery, incredibly intense sort of way.
Yep.
Which she deserves. She gets that.
Yeah. I was actually talking about the astrology of it with my mentor, and we kind of had the same impression of like, look at the female energy getting it, not settling. And that's going to continue with the way things go with the eclipses, even though Venus will be in Virgo, where she's technically in her fall. During these eclipses, we're also thinking about, the eclipse is about the sun and the moon and those conditions. I've been doing a lot of talking astrologically about what traditional sources say about eclipses, and we'll probably get more into that detail next week's episode. So the eclipse specific stuff is for next week. I think it's really cool that what we're going to do this week is focus on how to get everything in before eclipses.
Yeah. And I think it's important to talk about because I do think these eclipses are going to bring, so basically October is eclipse month. That's just, it just is what it is. So we're just going to start there. That is the month of eclipse energy. But I think that these eclipses specifically are going to bring in so much creative shifting energy. And I don't think very many of us are going to find us in the same place we were at the start of October to the end of October. I think it's going to be a lot of perspective shifting and physical, like moving here from here, like here to here. Boom, you got to move this over here. Lots of bunnies. Could we not? Thank you. Sorry. They just started like thumping around their cage or enclosure. It's not a cage. It's like a hutch thing.
It's like a little bunny condo. I've seen it. It's awesome.
It's a bunny. It's pretty like luxury. Besides the point. But it's really going to shift a lot of us very, very quickly and with a lot of intention. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I actually think that we're in a space where this type of change is lovely. And I think we need to embrace all of the messy that comes with it because it is really, truly setting us up for the energy of next year to kind of come in and play.
I also think it's setting us in for the energy of the future to come in and play. Like one of the things that I'm getting intuitively is that we're going to be creative because we're going to have to be resourceful, because we're going to have to wake up to the fact that this is a different world than what we've been kind of just sleeping in. For a while, you know, like, and that's on a larger scale. That may happen individually for sure, but I think it's us as a society. We're like, oh man, we are a different world. We're ready to do something. You know, we've had our recovery time, the whole that just happened thing, but it's time for us to be like, okay, but what next? I'm bored of sitting around in a sense.
No, I agree with that. It's really interesting as you were saying that the lyric from Bo Burnham's Inside, like, you say the ocean's rising like I give a shit. That one just came in. And it's because that chapter is closing, like, because the next part of that lyric is you say the whole world's ending, honey, it already did. Well, it didn't.
Yeah.
And now we're here and we like, cool, that sucked. And now what? And now we don't get to not give a shit about the ocean rising. Like we've seen more extreme weather this summer than in most of our entire lives, just this summer alone. And I think that is a big part of that shift too, is like, hey, remember we're on a planet that's conscious and we have to pull back this now. And like, we have to reconnect with each other again and really move forward in that sort of space. So really interesting that just popped in.
Yeah. Well,
in the way that it did.
We have to remember that we're a member of the planet and an aspect of the planet and an extension of the planet. And like, can we please for 1 second, remember that it's not us separate from that.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I do think that that's coming in. However, it being eclipses, the universe is doing this work for you. You could manifest through it if you wanna. You could cleanse through them if you want to, but it's kind of like just trying to pick out a singular cow from a tornado and be like, I want that cow. You're gonna get a cow. It just might hit you in the face and probably not the one you want. So
it reminds me of like when a new cell phone comes out and you get this color that you're like, well, I would have preferred like blue, but since they only have rose gold and green and whatever, and then 3 months later they come out with the blue that you wanted. And if you would have just let them like unravel their stuff, it would have been everything you wanted because it wasn't available yet. It wasn't real yet, but now it is. So, you know, let the perfect thing come to you.
Very much so.
And what you thought you had options of.
Yeah, because you can't control that tornado. You can't be like, I want that cow, because the tornado's like, no, I'm going to give you the cow you need, not that one, and just chuck it at you, whatever one it is. And that's what the eclipse season is it's, hey, this is the stuff the universe is working for you, which every eclipse season is an exercise in trust. It just is. So if you have massive trust blocks coming up now, or, you know, coming up in the next couple of weeks, whether it's between trusting yourself or trusting the universe or trusting partnerships or trusting just in general, those are the areas I would say to focus some energy on and set some intention around, not necessarily manifesting or even shedding really intentionally, but just being like, ooh, these are the areas that I obviously need to work through and that I'm working through and processing, because that's the energy for sure.
Yeah. And honestly, the week leading up to the eclipse is not quiet. We do have some aspects happening that are really just setting the stage for the stage setting. So this is like the overture to the show. Um, yeah.
Sorry.
I always think about the Wicked, the time dragon clock, which just has no relevance in the actual show except for being referenced a couple times. But I think it makes a lot more sense in the book. As
I was
many
just gonna say,
things
have you
do.
read the book? There's relevance in the book.
Yeah. I haven't read the full book
Not
yet.
great.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, I read it. I think I read it in high school, and I remember being like, "Oh, okay."
But yeah, so what we've got going on. So this episode releases on Wednesday for Patreons, for patrons, and that's the day that Mercury is going to move out of Virgo and into Libra. So we have Mercury coming into the same sign that the eclipse is going to occur in, a Venus ruled sign. But the cool thing about that is because Mercury is going to be in Venus's sign on the 8th, when Venus moves into Virgo, we get mutual reception between those two. So they're kind of taking care of each other just a little bit. Even though it's not Venus's favorite place to be, Mercury is in touch and sending care packages. So there's that going on. The same day as that, though, when Venus moves into Virgo on the 8th, on Sunday, we do have Mars square Pluto. So that can be a little bit high pressure in some ways. I think that's going to bring a lot of things to light. And this is also Pluto getting ready to station direct, which they will do on the 10th. So 2 days before Pluto goes direct, Mars squares with them. And on the same day that Pluto goes direct, Venus decides to have an opposition with Saturn. So everybody who's been missing Saturn in the skits, you won't have to miss them for long because we have 2 situations involving Saturn that we'll be getting over the next 2 weeks.
I'm excited Pluto's going direct. Like, I know it's such an outer planet, so it's not something you feel so concretely on a day-to-day, but it's just a nice energy.
It's where we've been having to dig our
forward.
heels in, and where we've been digging. Now we get to plant. You know, we've been unearthing, you know, you go through and you're like, okay, there's a time capsule in here. I can't plant new seeds in it. Let me unearth it, see what's in the capsule. And hey, look, I found seeds in here. I'll put those in the ground now and actually put them to use. So that's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. It's just kind of like, okay, yeah, like it's just it's a little bit of a move forward piece that comes in with that I just enjoy.
Yeah.
Which of course, you know, it moves real slow, so it's not like we're going to see a ton of stuff from that, but it's the energy of it just going direct is comforting in a way.
This is Pluto trying to make that run for Aquarius again. And he'll make it. They'll make it. They'll make it again in January, and then they'll retrograde again and go back into Capricorn. And you know, so it'll be 2025 before they actually get to settle down. Yeah.
You make it barely. Yeah, never mind.
Never mind. You're not ready for this.
There we go. My light just shut off out of nowhere, so I just had to fix it on the thing. And now all of a sudden you can see all of my face instead of half of it. Look at that.
Super lovely.
Wild. Yeah, it doesn't feel quiet. I do think that it feels if you feel overwhelmed this week, if you get that piece of like, okay, I'm so overwhelmed that there's nothing really I can do right now, so I'm just gonna not, that would make sense.
And if you feel that, empower yourself to just not. And don't feel like you're being lazy or that you're just being inactive. You are waiting. This is the time of my favorite thing to reference from Avatar: The Last Airbender, neutral Jin. If you watch, it's like the Return to Ba Sing Se, or no, the Return to Omashu episode. It's in the Book of Earth. When they return to Omashu, Aang gets advice, I won't spoil things, but about waiting for the right moment to act instead of acting immediately. You wait until everything says yes, all the pieces are in place, now you may act. Eclipse season is a very good example of that. We are setting ourselves up in the right place to wait appropriately for things to align.
And with this preparing for eclipse season episode, it is that, okay, well, I'm waiting for these eclipses to hit. It's going to be big energy, especially, we're going to talk more specifically about the eclipses as we dive into them, but especially a lot of our listeners are focused in the US. And so it's going to be extra big energy for them with the eclipses, but the solar eclipse at least. But preparing there, you might feel like you need to prepare by resting, and that is valid. You might feel like you need to prepare by reconnecting with spiritual stuff, and that is valid. Or even reconnecting with creative stuff or doing some fun play things. That is valid. What I will say is don't be surprised if in the next week or two specifically, you make a very impulsive but correct decision, is how I'm going to say. If you're like, I need a new tattoo, and you just boom, do it. We got off a call with someone today that's like, I'm surprised I'm going to Ireland. And we're like, yeah, that tracks. Like, like impulsive but correct, like impulsive, but honoring decision.
Yeah.
That's going to be a big
and
thing.
shout out to Janelle, because this is someone with a lot of Capricornian energy who is honoring the energy of just trusting by saying, I'm going to Ireland. I have nothing else planned except for my flights currently. And that's just a trust the process kind of situation. And just allowing things to fall into place for you instead of having to do it all yourself.
Yeah.
Gosh, that must be nice.
So lovely.
Yeah. I'm learning this right now, learning to do that with more folk magic-y things and stuff like that. It's interesting.
That's
I
my
highly
whole
recommend.
vibe.
Yeah, I recommend it. I recommend it when you have a lot of air in your chart too. So
Yeah, it's my whole vibe.
Yeah, I'm like so earth and water. I'm like, how can I control this? And then how can I have anxiety about it? Phenomenal. I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I'm like, no, it's gonna be fine. We're just gonna do this and it'll work out. Oh, it didn't. That's fine. I can course correct and try again. And it's just like, no issue. So join us. It's lovely over here.
Come on up.
It's not the most productive, but it is very lovely.
It gets done when it needs to get done, though. I highly admire. I'm married to a prominent air sign person as well, and I just watched that happen, and I'm just like, wow, that's awesome.
Oh no,
Krista. Don't make me laugh.
I know, I'm sorry. I just find you enjoyable.
Oh, thank you. You get the best compliments right now.
Yeah. So things I would say is, even though you're not trying to manifest or necessarily cleanse or do anything like that during eclipse season, it is a good time where you, right now for this week leading up to it, you can set some intentions of like, it is a little bit like birthday candle wishes. So I am just going to throw that out there where it's like, man, I would like the change and shifts to happen in these areas. And it's just like submitting your pretty please to the universe. Like, here, this is what I would really like to happen. I trust your plan, but like, this is, if I have any sort of say, this is the say I would like to have. So it's a little like that, which is okay. So I would recommend at least establishing those in some capacity of just like what areas you would like the shifts to occur in.
Yeah, you can make requests and then, leave room for artistic license. It's like when you hire someone to make a logo for you and you're like, I want it to feel like this, but you can kind of have fun with it. That's kind of where we're at. Like, I want it to feel like this, but I'm really open to seeing your creative interpretation.
Yeah, you find the right energy to participate in that with, basically. Being like, hey, these are the vibes I want for this eclipse season, and this is what I would like it to set me up for next year. When I say next year, I mean from like next November to November. Just to keep that perspective. Yeah, it's really interesting energy. I'm really embracing of it. I'm excited for it, and I'm encouraged that the shifts are going to be what is in the highest and best for everyone, regardless about how we feel them in the moment.
I believe they will be, and I'm curious to see how that goes.
Yes, exactly. I am excited for your shifts. I think we already have some ideas of where you're going, and that's cool and exciting.
Just across the highway, I got a new house. Booyah.
Yep. Krista accepted. They accepted the offer that you guys put in yesterday. Recording
my office is going to be really cool. It's not going to change anything of what this looks like because I'm taking the bookshelves with me. But I'm going to have a fireplace in my office. I'm really up for that.
It is quite lovely to have a fireplace in your office, as someone who also has a fireplace in their office.
I really do like how we ended up with similar setups. Like, my desk is even going to be on the same side of the room as yours. I've got sliding doors on the same side. It's pretty funny. My kitchen is where your bar is. So yeah, I
know when you showed me the layout of the house, I'm like, oh, it's cool and funky, and that's what I'm dealing with too.
It looks familiar.
Oh, which is awesome. So congrats. So stoked for you.
To the point you were making, when I think I don't know if I mentioned this now, because I've been really proud of this. When I got home from Lake Tahoe, I was like, okay, I'm ready to find a house. There's nothing else on my list. Now is the time. So I decided to find a charm or spell for finding a house. And I found one and I did it. And I happened to have all of the things I needed for it, which I was like, okay, I know this is the right time to do this then. And the day after I did it, 2 houses came on the market and we signed the agreement yesterday. So magic, man. It's really
It
cool.
works.
Mhm.
It's a real thing. Magic
Yep.
works for sure. It just doesn't have the same sparkly flair you think about in books, but that
No.
doesn't make it not effective.
And honestly, the sparkly flare would be really annoying after a while.
You think?
I think so, because like people would be in your face about it. Like this, you can do your work,
Yeah.
and if you want it to have sparkly flare, you can always make it sparkly.
Mm-hmm.
But like one of the things I'll be doing this weekend is going to our local holistic shop and picking up things to do protection on the house. No one needs to
Mm-hmm.
know how I'm doing that. So
Yeah.
it's like you get your options of privacy with the way magic
Mm-hmm.
actually works, which is nice.
That is a nice perspective on it. I appreciate that.
That's my Capricorn Saturn for you.
Yeah, my whole thought is that like everyone has magic too. So if it was
Mhm.
pretty and sparkly, it would be fun because we'd all just have pretty sparkly things together.
Yeah, but
But
we'd
I
also
get
get
that.
used to pretty and sparkly, and then we'd have to escalate from there.
This is truth.
And then we'd need explosions, and that's
No.
interesting.
No one needs to cast fireball. We're good.
But it might be super effective.
Super effective does not always make it the right choice.
That is correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say something else about that, and now I lost it. Where did it go? Oh well. Oh, we are gonna have some fun announcements coming up during eclipse season as well. So I do just want to like plug those in. Ordinarily, we would probably be starting to talk about it on this episode, but we're gonna wait till next episode.
Yep.
Because we're gonna make it wait.
Yeah. Well, and we're announcing it before eclipse season, so you will have the opportunity to take advantage of it before eclipse season.
Yeah.
And then, there's no commitment necessary until after eclipse season for most of it. That being said, if you're interested in the Forgotten Storytellers, that is filling up rather lovely. So now is a great time to send in your pitch and see if this is the right time for you to join. We love to read it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, we basically spent all morning doing Forgotten Storytellers stuff, and it's so exciting, and stuff for the new cohort, stuff for our current cohort, planning stuff with the publishing company. I mean, all sorts of different things, which is just incredibly exciting and fun.
Yeah.
So we would love to have you participate. And I mean, if you have an idea for a story, like you don't need to have it fully vetted. It doesn't need to be ready. That's by design. We spend the first 2 months of the program helping you get ready to write your book. Truly, that's what we do. Because it's supposed to be a journey like that. It's not supposed to be something that you're just, have it all fully vetted out and you step in fully ready to write. Like you would need our help if that was the case. And it's fine to need help and collaboration and things come out the way they're supposed to. So
yeah. And
all that being said,
you get to develop your spiritual abilities alongside of your book, which is something that I really love about our program that we can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And what I was going to say is just all that being said, if you feel a draw and excited about it, it's worth just submitting an idea and seeing where it takes you. So.
Yeah. I mean, if you submit your pitch just really quickly and we feel like we can support it and we can help it along, you get to meet us and we get to talk about everything. So if you're like, I'm going to take a shot and see how it goes. And if we're like, yeah, this feels right, we get to talk before you make any commitment. So it's really, if you do feel like this could be a thing, go for it. You really have nothing to lose. And that's one of the things we try to maintain.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that reminds me too. One other thing that's going to come through a lot during this eclipse season is new guides, new entities, new ghosts, new spirits coming forward and making themselves known. And it could be that you have a new guide that pops in and you're like, hello, what are you here for? And you don't really get a lot of information. You just know they're around until, maybe next January or February, like they're stepping in to prepare you for this next step. But also with this eclipse season, again, the spiritual energy is really active. So maybe your characters start popping through during this eclipse season, like characters that want you to write their story. That would make a lot of sense because again, ushering in the next step. Or maybe there's new ghosts or spirits around you because you've shifted the energy in your house and something like that, which isn't a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. They get to share space too. If you don't want them there, you can always kick them out. But it's just those little pieces that are also starting to open up to, again, open us up to the next chapters and versions of ourselves. And there's just a lot of spiritual intensity that comes with that. So I want to make sure to acknowledge that because that's already starting for people, but only going to escalate over the next 2 weeks or so.
Yeah. And especially on the, if you change your house up and you end up stirring up a spiritual energy that is conscious, they've stirred up and now they're conscious. Maybe this is because you're going to give them the opportunity to make their next move, perhaps to somewhere that's better for them.
Yeah, exactly. Get them to express, help you grow at the same time.
Yeah.
All of it. So just as another point to kind of throw that in there. And then in the second half of the month, we're going to have another announcement as well. That's going to be really exciting. So keep your eyes peeled for that as well, which is going to be different than anything else we've ever done, ever.
Yeah.
Nothing you can anticipate. You don't know.
You
I say to a bunch of
it coming.
Right. I say to all the psychic people listening, you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what it is.
And if you want to guess, go ahead, put it in the comments. We'll be really thrilled to see if you get it.
You might get it, to be totally honest. All of you are intuitive and beautiful and awesome, and it's not that big of a stretch, but it is something we've never done and we're really excited about it. Or at least not done in this capacity. So all is exciting and ready and going. But yeah, we did have a question that I do want us to talk about before we sign off. And the question was, can family members or spousal connections share the same spirit guides? So do you want to start on that? Or you want me to start on that? Because I
have some thoughts on it, but I think you probably have more direct experience than I do. So I'm really excited to hear your thoughts.
More often than not, guides talk to one another within the family unit. They aren't the same for each individual person. So that I would say 99% of the time you don't share a guide, but your guides talk to their guides. Your guides talk to the guides of the people you interact with quite often, because they're in their own world doing their own stuff. So they also get to communicate there. It is possible. It's not, I'm not going to say no, it's impossible, but it's very, very uncommon and not typical of guide relationships.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I found too. If you have someone that's coming in and is interacting with the family as a whole, it's usually an ancestor and probably one that you've met. And I don't know that they're necessarily a guide so much as they're checking in. Perhaps they'll come in and be there for a moment to help with the transition of another family member or things like that. My great-great-grandmother came in most around the time when my grandmother was passing. And nobody else was able to perceive her. And she and I do have a stronger connection because she helped me learn healing. But it was also like very clear of, I'm here to help your grandmother. You're here to anchor everybody else here while I'm doing my work. And it was like, okay, that's the thing. So there's usually a purpose, even if it's just to comfort, closure, that kind of thing. When I used to do gallery readings, a lot of the time they come through, and most of the time it's not because you're just like looking for anything, it's because they're there to provide closure. They don't want you spinning in life. They want you to be able to evolve, grow, have your experiences, those kinds of things.
Yeah. I'll also say occasionally there is like an ancestral guide that's not necessarily an ancestor, but that is a guide of all of this family line.
Yeah.
And that usually comes through some sort of pact or bonding or contract or something one of your ancestors did like 7 generations ago or something that has now followed through the line. So it's less about like you and your spouse and your kids. It's more about them being like, this is the DNA that I am guiding. And so they will be the guide for a bunch of people. And that again is also particularly rare, but it's not something I haven't seen before. So I've seen it. One thing that I have seen a couple different times with like spousal guides is sometimes your higher self is your spouse's guide and their higher self is your guide. And that has happened before. I've seen that a couple different times. Again, not a rule of thumb by any means, and I don't want you to romanticize that necessarily. Please don't. But that is something that I've seen happen, and purely because that higher self is the best person to help you on your growth, and vice versa. And of course, maybe that is the relationship you also have with your physical spouse down here on Earth as well. But that is just something to keep in mind, that does happen, but not necessarily in a oh, it's because we love each other so much. Like maybe, but it's usually because like, hey, you're always the best at calling me out on my stuff and you can help me grow through this space. And like, you guys kind of both do that for each other. Yeah.
Yeah. It tends to supersede our physical understanding of relationship.
It does. Yeah, very much so. Every single time. On a very deep level, it does. Yeah. So cool. Well, that is kind of it. If there's anything you do want to get done before eclipse season, like something that you're pulled to do, whether that's like, I need to get my car fixed or chop some firewood or something like that, like physically, I just recommend leaning in on it in the next like week and a half, doing that if you can. Or spiritual stuff if you're really being pulled to pull cards or, you know, to sit and meditate for a little bit. You can still do all of those things during eclipse season. It's just something that for preparation's sake to give it a shot.
Yeah, I would make sure that you ground yourself as much as possible, know yourself as much as possible, you know, align yourself as much as possible, because we do have these Venus ruled eclipses coming through. And that means that relationships may come up. So the more you're aware of yourself, the more you can understand when a relationship situation comes up, the more you can provide balance, and know yourself enough to understand a situation rather than reacting or having fear experiences.
Yeah, fully agree. Cool.
Drink
well,
water.
Drink water. Everyone take a second and send Krista a whole bunch of healing energy so that their back feels better. 1, 2, 3. Yay. Sending all of that your way. Absolutely.
I like how you send energy by celebrating. 1, 2, 3. Yay.
Yay. All of this sparkles. Sorry. Did I make you laugh? No.
Good. It's good. Oh, it's good.
Of course, humor as a coping mechanism does not work well when you're in pain.
No, but I am the same as you, so I'm not mad at all. Like I can laugh through the painful part and get into the sustained part, and then come back.
When I had my gallbladder surgery, what was it, like a year and a half ago now? That was the worst part, is I cope with humor. Like I always, like, that's how I process. So I will try to crack jokes and I could not laugh, period. Or stitches rip levels of like, no. And that was the worst because I didn't know how to process anything.
Yep. I understand.
What do I do?
Our whole cohort found out at the retreat this last week. Every time I said something, people were like, Scorpio moon. I'm like, because we decided what my next nonfiction book is going to be like, I have a lot of great stories. Most of them end in death. So like this one doesn't. It ends in medication though, I hope. So yeah, I've already started doing my own healing work on it. So hopefully it'll be speedy.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, we hope that you take all of this magic and this energy that is this week. It is going to be busy. It's going to be a lot, but you've got this. Trust your gut. Go with what feels right. And
go make some
magic.
Oh, somebody tell me how that went.
I don't know. It felt nice.